Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's do some local sports roundup this morning. We got lots to catch up on. Local sports roundup brought to you by our good friends from Carpet City Flooring Center. So we did have a game last night. Regis, it was a good matchup too. Regis, Durand, Arkansas.
Right.
Regis ends up coming away with the W at Carson Park.
Correct. That's a big one as it goes to the Clover Belt this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another one that's going to be looming down the line here probably is Regis and Mondovi.
Mm-hmm.
The Mondovi state ranked team. They're at Stanley Boyd tonight, but that's a matchup that down the line here could really kind of be a key one. I mean, it's going to be the same thing when Mondovi and Durand, Arkansas play too. So when as those teams kind of play each other to see who kind of emerges, and obviously that's just a big one for Regis to get, having to even deal with a little bit of a lightning delay there. But
yeah, which I saw that, I'm like, I didn't see lightning at my house, so must have been a little area over there.
Right.
So, but yeah, so win there, and then I know, immediate wise, it's the North and Memorial game tonight.
Right.
North picked up a win last week. Memorial still looking for their first one, but
right, and that's obviously that's a unique one now this year with that being both those schools being on campus. That one's at Memorial, so kind of a unique environment.
Yep.
I think we talked about it a little bit last week, but just not having that usual Carson Park environment. It's gonna be a little bit different. Whereas I'm sure that game, no matter who the home team was, always kind of felt like more of a neutral site game,
right,
or a home game for both teams.
Right.
But still, I mean, you're going to still have people that obviously travel, and that's going to. I'm very curious to see how that feels, just kind of environment wise. Because and look, that's a game. That's a gettable one for both of them. You mentioned North coming off the big win over Superior. Eau Claire Memorial, they've been competitive. I saw them a few weeks ago when they played Chippewa Falls. That was a game where they were competitive there. Like, that's a team that's hung around with some good teams here so far this year. Hudson earlier on in the year and Stevens Point. So, that's I don't think you're going to have any shortage of motivation or want to from either of those teams. That should be a fun one, I think.
Right. Before we get to the big 8-man one, what are some of the other matchups? Kind of week 5 already?
Yeah, week 5. We are at the halfway point of 11-player. We're actually starting the second half of 8-player.
Man.
So, but yeah, in the big rivers, a couple big ones tonight. Hudson, Stevens Point. That's kind of a fun.
That's a long distance travel.
That's a long travel. Hudson making the trip east to Stevens Point, but that's a crossover game, meaning that counts in the conference standings for both those teams.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a good one to have on your resume if you get that win there. River Falls, unbeaten. New Richmond fell to Hudson last week, still highly ranked. I mean, I saw River Falls last week when they played Chippewa. I mean, that's a big physical River Falls team that's got some speed to it. I mean, last week Chippewa Falls, they were up on, they took a lead in the second half. I mean, I mentioned Chippewa Falls. I mean, that's a team that they have played very well against some really good teams. They played Stevens Point at the start of the year. That was a one-score game in the third quarter. Against New Richmond, that was, I think, a one-score game at halftime. Last week, they're beating River Falls in the third quarter. Those are three teams that start today with a combined record of 11-1. Wow. All those, Chippewa Falls end up losing those games, but they've hung with these teams, especially as a younger, more inexperienced team. That's a good sign for Chippewa, but at some point, you want to be able to find a way to kind of close that out. Now, the thing with Chippewa, though, is that schedule isn't getting easier because now Rice Lake comes to town. And that's a Rice Lake team that, got off to a little bit of a slow start last week against Menominee. Menominee came out of the gates really strong, but then they turned it on. And, with Rice Lake, you're going to get that triple option. You're going to get a team that just doesn't make many mistakes, and that's going to grind you out. So
you love the triple option,
I love it. Like, it's always so fun to watch.
I ran it in practice last night with my third graders.
Nice. And it's like, Rice Lake is just one of and they're one of those teams that does it as well as anyone. Like, I think of even back, I'm feeling old now because it was roughly a decade ago now. But like when Stanley Boyd faced Amherst in the playoffs, and that was when Garrett Groshek was the quarterback there. Tyler Biadasz was playing for Amherst before they went on to play at Wisconsin. Like just watching, like there's few things to me in sports that are funner to watch than a well-run triple option. Just because you have to, and I've had this conversation so many times over the years with Chippewa coach Chuck Rakovic, and he mentioned like. It takes 11 players. It takes 11 players on defense to try to contain it because all it takes is one person that tries to do a little bit too much, and you lose your assignment and someone's gone.
Yep. That's a good way to put it.
So that's a big one there. You look in the Dun St. Croix. You've got Boyceville and Clear Lake. That's an interesting one there. Cadott takes a trip to Spring Valley. Cadott coming off a tough loss to Grantsburg, a state-ranked Grantsburg team, but that's still a much improved Cadott team. Spring Valley, that's a team they've had some fun battles with over the years. Spring Valley's always solid there. So, that's one you're going to have to maybe keep in mind on. That's a crossover one too. Those are, definitely that's a non-conference game kind of, but it counts towards the conference standings. So, that's one to keep an eye out. Couple games in the Dairyland. Got Cochrane Fountain City playing Blair Taylor, Pepin-Alma, both they're ranked. They're going to play Melrose Mindoro. So you've got some big ones on deck here.
Yeah, and then the big one, which I got somebody sent me a message about it on I think Saturday morning. I'm like, yeah, we know about it, but it's a big one. And the one that you're going to be at
That's
tonight.
where I will be tonight, yeah, McDonald at Gilman.
Mm-hmm.
We put it out to the fan vote this week, and the fan, that's where they voted me. They want me to make the trip over to the
Taylor County, the western side of Taylor County.
Yep. So, we're going to have McDonald at Gilman. That's number 1 versus number 2 in the Bound Wisconsin 8-player state rankings. Gilman number 1, McDonald number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Both those teams have been absolutely dominant so far. McDonald coming off the shutout win over Owen Withy last week. Gilman started the season with a shutout win over Owen Withy. These are two, in my opinion, these are the 2 best 8-player teams in the state. So far, obviously, that's what the coaches' rankings say. But I'm looking forward to this game because, especially given how the weather looks, this could be a slugfest in the slop. Which I'm all for. But to me, I think it's just going to come. To me, it's going to be defense. Both these teams have had excellent defenses. I think they've each had 3 shutouts on their resume through 4 games, if I'm remembering correctly. Both these teams can run the ball. Both these teams will spread it out a little bit as far as who they give the ball to. They're not just out, kind of a one back offense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm curious to see just how these defenses go up against these, which is obviously by far going to be their most significant challenge of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big matchup, not just for who wins and who's number 1 in the state rankings, whatever. Not just because the winner is going to have a inside track on the North Central East Conference Championship, but also for the postseason pairings. Whoever wins this game, will have the inside track on possibly being a 1 seed. There's still obviously 3 weeks for them to go after this, so I'm not going to say they've got it because you never know. But obviously that's going to bode very well for them. And keep in mind, next week is the first week where we get the rankings from the WIA as far as the playoffs go. So teams that starting after this week will be able to start to kind of chart their progress.
Okay.
And this will be a tremendous resume enhancer because both these teams already have really good resumes. But I'm kind of curious to see what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible? Because you just mentioned these are, in your opinion, you think the 2 best 8-man teams in the 8-player teams in the state. Is it possible they could meet for the championship, or are they going to be on the same side? Do you think?
That's a good question. Because I could see a world where, whoever wins tonight, and say that one's 8-0, one's 7-1, and they just, they're dominant after this. I could see a world where maybe they're put into different regions. So it might be a thing where maybe they would meet in the semis. And to me, that would be fair. Even if I think they're the 2 best teams, I understand that sometimes, the best 2 teams don't always meet in the state championship game. But the biggest thing I would like to see, assuming it bears out that way, is that they're not in the same, I would say, group of, because there's 32 teams, so the same group of 8 essentially.
Gotcha,
so you're not one's a 1, one's a 2 in the same region. I would not, that would be a bummer to me because to me that's at least a semifinal game. That's not a quarterfinal game, in my opinion. But we'll just have to see how that looks, and it's possible. Because your sections are always seated like northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. So it's possible that maybe Gilman is northeast. If there's no other powerhouse,
it'd be right on that border there.
It would, and that's kind of the thing. It's because McDonald is going to be. You figured northwest. It's possible just with the way, because remember, these 8-player teams are not divvied up equally around the state as far as where they are.
Right.
You have a lot in the northern part, a lot in the northern west. You have a fair amount in the northeast too, but you don't really have much in the southwest or the southeast. So it's kind of it may not always look the way it is on paper, but if they could do that when that time comes, if that's how that scenario played out, I would hope they could try to find a way to do that. And just make sure that your best teams are a little bit more split up.
Moving on, how about volleyball-wise?
Yep. Volleyball, this is kind of a first week. I think you're really seeing all of these conferences get underway. I mean, the Big Rivers, East Lakeland, I think the Dun St. Croix. I think they had gotten underway already, but this Tuesday night was the first night of conference play for the Clover Belt for the West. A couple big ones right off the bat. McDonald picking up the 4-set win over Stanley Boyd. That's where I was Tuesday night. That was a big time. I mean, that had the feel of a playoff game, and it was the middle of September. Stanley Boyd came out strong, took the first set. McDonald kind of rallied and grabbed the final 3. Earlier on this year, they played over at the UW-Stout Sprawl in Menominee. Stanley Boyd won that one. So, but that was a really good one to start off. Regis picking up the win over Elk Mound, who, if you have not heard me mention this up, Elk Mound now in the Western Clover Belt. So, they jump in there. Bloomer picking up a 5-set win over in Fall Creek. An exciting matchup, and then Canot starting with a straight set win over Thorpe. So. You fast forward to last night, Hudson picked up the win over Chippewa Falls in Big River's play. I mean, I think there, as it kind of goes on, River Falls is kind of still the team to beat there. I mean, they won the Sprawl earlier. They're still an excellent team. I mean, they bring back some of those players that helped them get to state last year. I think they're a favorite there still, but I mean, they're going to face some good contenders. Hudson's a good team. They've already got a win over Chippewa. I think Chippewa Falls is an improved team from last year. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting, not just for the regular season, but also once we get to the postseason, because, that Division I sectional outside of, a couple of years ago when Chippewa Falls won, I think it's 2022, to go to state for the first time, that section has run through River Falls. That's just a continually awesome program.
Right. Soccer-wise?
Yep, soccer, we're well into the throes of that as well. You look at the Big Rivers, always starts with Hudson and Memorial. I mean, for that there, but we're into soccer, we're into cross country. We've had some meets coming up. I know last weekend we had the in Menominee. Menominee hosted their Menominee Relays, which is kind of a unique thing for cross country. But you had Menominee there; they won the girls' championship. Bloomer was second. Bloomer kind of getting a look at that course because now the Bloomer girls are Division I, so they had a chance to compete. They took second, so encouraging outing obviously for them going up. Kind of stepping up the competition.
All right.
Tennis is underway. I spent some time last night at Chahai. Chippewa Falls picked up a 5-2 victory over New Richmond. They've got a few Big Rivers wins under their belt, which they've got some. Earlier in the week, Menominee defeated them, but Menominee, Hudson, Eau Claire Memorial. Those are generally boys and girls tennis are the kind of the class of the conference there. So and even girls golf. Like next week, we're into conference play or
I was
conference
just going to ask. Okay, yeah.
18-hole tournaments for conference, and then once October starts, that's when the girls' postseason begins for girls golf.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of crazy to say, but you remember back when football started their season for practice, not that long after, girls golf did too, and they started playing earlier. Obviously, girls golf, golf is a little bit more reliant on Mother Nature being kind.
Right.
So, yeah, we're going to get in there. I mean, the Big Rivers this year has been kind of a fun back and forth. You've had, a bunch of teams kind of jockeying for position at the top. And, going into next week, I mean, it kind of comes to a head there.
Yeah. Good stuff. I know Blue Gold wise football, they're going to look to stay undefeated.
Yeah.
They're at Carson Park tomorrow. Martin Luther coming over. If the Blue Golds win, they'll begin the season 3-0 before homecoming in a couple weeks, where they'll open up WIAC conference play against Stout. That should be a really good one.
Boy, having that game on homecoming, my goodness.
Right.
Not that the War of 94 game ever really needs any more extra juice to it, but you get a couple teams that have had some good start.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Eau Claire would be excited for homecoming. I'm sure Stout would love nothing more than to ruin Eau Claire's homecoming. So.
Yep. And Stout's got University of Northwestern, the Minnesota one, for football. But also a reminder tonight as well, Blue Gold Volleyball, who they're riding, I think it's up to 11 now, 11-game winning streak, 11-match winning streak. Their top 25 team, they're home at the Sonotag against the number 1 team, Whitewater. Free admission to anybody because they want to set the Division III attendance record for volleyball.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been to the Sonotag Center or you want to watch a good matchup.
Good chance to get out and see it.
Yeah, because, even though it's like number 1 Whitewater, Blue Golds are a top team in the country too. But if that thing gets packed to where they set the record, that's a game changer.
And just in general, like to me, volleyball is like one of the best spectator sports when it comes to like people getting into it. Like it's, there's few sports to me that are better, that are funner to cover when you get like I said Tuesday when I was in Stanley for Stanley Boyd and McDonald. Like there's few sports that like when you have two really good teams kind of going back and forth and the ebbs and the flows of a game, the ups and the downs, like the emotional of it. Like volleyball ranks really high up there, and then you take it to the next level. If it's college, these are two elite teams in from a great conference. Like, no, that's one if you can get out to.
Yep,
you should do it,
especially for free.
It'll be worth your time.
And I know they got some stuff playing tailgate wise. I think the band's playing and such, so they're going to go all out for this thing tonight. So that's your local sports roundup, brought to you by Carpet City Flooring Center.